Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who is out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Welcome to the podcast. Bob Nickman here, and I'm so glad you're tuning in. I got a great interview today with a guy named John Paul Crimi, who does something called breathwork. Teaches teachers to teach breathwork. And we had a great discussion about how he went from somebody who was very resentful, bitter, cynical, to using this work to transform how he lived his life and how he got started. And a chance meeting, if you believe in chances, I think, the universe may work in a different way than just randomness. With Tony Robbins, led him on a path to finally discovering breathwork and his calling to teach it and spread the power of this type of breathing. It's a meditative breathing, and he's going to explain that to me. At the beginning of this, when he talks about using his hands, not being able to use his hands, the first thing, that's because I have the people I interview hold the mic. I like it rather than using a mic stand because it keeps them up on top of the mic, so it's a little bit better sound quality. And just sort of personally, I'd like to hold a mic, and maybe it's from my days back in stand-up comedy where I always had a mic in my hand. So that's what that first sort of thing is, and I left it in because I liked it. Could have cut it out, but I didn't. So please enjoy this interview. Great guy, lots of energy, very straightforward, straight shooter, the way I like it. This is John Paul Crimi.
This is going to be hard without using my hands.
You can use your hands.
You use one hand.
Oh, yeah. Wait. Use your legs. All right, John Paul Crimi.
Crimi, yes.
Italian name.
Yes.
We just had a little pre-discussion about the origins of his name. And we're here to talk about breathwork. And I have taken 2 classes, one live and one virtual online. I had 2 fairly different experiences, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I want to start out with, what is breathwork? How would you best describe it? And how did you get started doing it?
Breathwork is a active form of meditation, meaning you're going to breathe in this certain way, kind of intensely for a certain amount of time, and then afterwards, that's when the meditation comes in. Your head shuts off and you're quiet, and you have all these beautiful things that happen to you during that period. So it's an active form of meditation. It's often confused with Kundalini yoga. People will be like, oh, I've been doing breathwork for 10 years, and they're talking about Kundalini yoga. That's not what it is. It's sometimes called holotropic breathwork or clarity breathwork or shamanic breathwork or transformational breathwork, but it's similar to what I do is similar to those things, but not any of those things.
Well, I noticed that when I tried it, it was kind of difficult at first because it was a different way to breathe, and I've done yoga classes, and that's a different type of breathing.
Right.
This is in through the mouth mostly.
Yes, it's done through the mouth. And mostly in life, you should be breathing in through your nose. The nose is the best way to breathe in life. But for this practice, you're going to breathe through the mouth, which is unusual, but it does do something. It activates some stuff, and it clears some stuff. And, we'll get into all that. It gets pretty weird. But, yeah, you're breathing in and out through your mouth for the whole time of the active portion.
Yeah, and the second time I did it, the first couple of minutes, my body got really hot. Like my head started to get really hot, and I got a little dizzy, and then it went away pretty quickly.
Right.
That was the second time. The first time I did it, I had a different. I was more concentrating on how to do it because it was so different. but before we get into the specifics, I want to tell you kind of some of the stuff that happened. What I like about doing this interview is that I had the actual experience very recently, so it's kind of fresh, and everything you kind of said about it, which was, it'll change things, and each time is different. That was true for me. So I trust you.
You don't need to trust me. You just need to do it and find out for yourself. That's what I tell people. Like, I love when I get somebody in there who doesn't believe it's going to do shit for them, who's cynical, that was me. Like, when I came in, I was angry and cynical and like, what is this shit I'm about to do? And the more resistant you are, the bigger the experience, the bigger the shift. It's more profound. So I'm like, great, come. Don't believe me it's going to work. Don't even be into it. Just do it and see what happens.
Well, that was my attitude. I'm going to go in and I'm not going to really have an opinion. I'm just going to try it because somebody that I like and trusted recommended it. So I said, all right, well, I'll try that.
Right.
I like to experiment with things like that.
I was talking to this woman at my class last night who's a French documentarian, and she said, you told me, she did an interview with me a while ago, and she said the one time of doing it can be like a profound, life-changing experience, and she thought I was full of it. And she did it and had that experience. Now she comes all the time, and it's like, people have these profound, huge, like, experiences the first time. I had a profound experience the first time. Some people, it's a bit too intense for the first time, and they get a little freaked out, and they need to come a few times, because the first time you do anything new, it can be intense and scary. But this is very emotional a lot of the times.
Yeah. Now doing the live class in a room for about 50 people, I was resistant because, there was people around me. What I got out of it, what I loved about that class, though, was...
You mean resistant to being emotional?
Yes.
Okay.
And to really letting go.
Yeah.
And also probably because it was the first time I was trying to do it right, and I was concentrating, and I was hearing other people, which was both a distraction and an energetic sort of impetus to keep going. And then with the music and you talking through it, that was an amazing experience. I loved it. And then when you hit that music with the gong, that, like I was telling you, the gong, I love gong because it just sort of resonates with different parts of your body inside.
Right.
That was an amazing experience. Now, the virtual one, which I did the next time, which was, for those listening, John Paul has two classes online. Yeah. Actually, let's plug your website and your virtual classes too.
Sure. It's called, the website's called Breathe with JP, BREATHE with JP.com. And right now the virtual classes, they're live. I'm actually sitting there live. People are shocked. They're like, wait, you're here? I'm like, yeah, it's not recorded. It's not pre-recorded.
Right.
I'm sitting there live when at that time, which live doesn't mean live anymore for some reason. Like literally doesn't mean literally anymore. But I'm live at that time. And so it's 7:30 West Coast time, Pacific Standard Time on Wednesdays, and 9 a.m. on Sundays, Pacific Standard Time. And so there's benefits to both. There's benefits to live online, and there's benefits to in person, right?
Yes.
Some people find it a little easier to let go emotionally when they're in the comfort of their own home. And so doing it live online is pretty cool for that reason. You can let go emotionally a little more. You don't have to drive afterwards because some people are really out of it. You can lay on the floor and enjoy it as long as you like.
Yeah.
Which, after this meditation, you don't want to get up for a while. You want to enjoy it. I mean, the first time I did it was like the first time I ever had a quiet head in my entire life. It was incredible. I didn't want to move. I just wanted to lay there and enjoy the peacefulness which I had never experienced before.
Yeah. So I found that to be true because when I did it online, which was the second time, and you were there. Now, what I was worried about was that you could hear me, but you can't.
No, you're muted.
So
you can turn off your camera as well, which most people do.
Yeah. So I didn't. Didn't care if you really saw me, but I was laying down. I think the camera was not even on me. But what I loved about it was I was completely not resistant to anything because I was, in a sense, I was being guided by the music and your voice, but also I was alone.
Mm.
And I really had a lot of, physical reactions as well as emotional. I had a lot of uncontrolled uncontrolled body movement,
Sure.
like a lot of I don't know what the word jerking, almost. I don't know what the word would be.
Everybody
That word
experiences.
didn't sound right to me.
No. Everybody experiences different physical sensations.
Yeah.
And so, like, if we were going to get into all the physical sensations, we'd be here the whole podcast just talking about it. But, like, one of the most common things is your hands can get a little clamped up and a little crazy. That happens to a lot of people in the beginning. And that there's some reasons for that. One of them is they're pushing the exhale a little bit too much, which I go into. And we're just holding shit in our bodies. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we hold in our bodies. And there's books now that talk about this, such as, your body keeps the score and it didn't start with you. Things happen to us in our life that get stuck, and we keep them physically in our bodies, energetically in our bodies. And this is one of the biggest, most powerful things about what I do, the breath work, is it clears that stuff out. And maybe you don't even know it's there. Maybe some jerk pushed you off the monkey bars when you were 3, right? And you don't even remember it, but you don't feel safe in the world because somebody pushed you from behind, right? And so you clear all this stuff out. And I have therapists who come up to me after my class and say, that was like a year of therapy.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I mean, when you and I've done some other types of work where the idea that the body stores memory in the muscles and the cells, and when you release it, it's sort of unexpected what happens. I mean, I had some very primal noises coming out of me, like
yeah,
and crying without tears, which was really interesting to me. And then I had some visions of things from the past that kind of came to me. Things I hadn't really thought about in a long time. Some were pleasant, some weren't.
Sure.
I had one moment, I don't remember what I was thinking about, but I had the biggest smile on my face, and I'm not a big smiler. I'm kind of I kind of fight this whole idea of joy.
I refuse to be happy in this life.
Well, I'm serious. That is like an issue for me.
Sure.
A lot of the time, most of the time, actually.
Yeah.
And I had that.
Well, then don't keep doing this breath work, because you'll be happy. And you'll be grateful and enjoy your life. I mean, that's what happened to me. I was this really angry, cynical, kind of negative guy. And I started doing this breath work every day, and it just cleared all that out and changed me. And I really missed that cynical, angry guy.
Well, I'm sure he's,
No, he's there.
Keep him in your hip pocket if you need him.
Look, if I stop doing it, he comes right back. Trust me. He's he's just waiting there.
Well, I think that's what attracted me to even wanting to try it, because that is probably my biggest thing is this idea of, my mind running the show and telling me the negative side is more valid than the positive side, and that joy is this elusive thing that maybe I'm not supposed to have, or don't deserve, or it certainly was a learned thing for me.
It's your
too.
mind's trying to protect you. Your mind doesn't want you to do anything hard or difficult or uncomfortable. And it also doesn't want you to get hurt, quote unquote, hurt again, meaning it doesn't want to set you up for disappointment. So, I can't get too excited about this because it's going to work out bad, because it always works out bad. So your mind it's a protective mechanism.
Yeah.
And so, if we're going to do anything great in life, or innovative or creative or worthwhile, we have to override that mechanism in our brain that tries to stop us, because it's going to get uncomfortable. You have to push through anything hard to be great, to do anything unusual, to do anything creative. You have to push through that. You have to turn off that critic in your head that's going to say, no, everybody's done this before, everybody's heard this before, you don't know how to do this. You have to turn that off. And breathwork is one of the best tools I've ever found to do that and to go out and create. I mean, I've created so many great things since I started doing this. I have all this stuff in my life that I didn't have before.
Like, because I'd love that idea, because you do seem different to me than when I met you 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I have a couple businesses that I didn't have.
Yeah,
I have.
That's nice.
Yeah, I have a family that I didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to have kids. I changed my mind.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a really powerful experience. I have a house I didn't have. I have albums on iTunes that people buy that I didn't have. I do, all these different, there's different aspects, of things in my life that didn't exist before. And it's like I say it's like a GPS system for your life. I don't know what to do next. So I lay down and breathe, and it literally will tell me what to do next or who to help next, you know?
Okay. That's amazing because it's very attractive to me what you're saying. I just think it's, I'm actually getting kind of teary thinking about how someone can go from being so dark and cynical and sarcastic. I mean, those are like my go-tos a lot of the time.
Sure.
And I have to be real careful with it. Sarcasm, by the way, from the Latin, which means to tear flesh.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I heard that, I was like, oh. I heard a guy once say, he goes, I used to say, well, yeah, I'm a little sarcastic, but it's really funny. He goes, but the truth is, I'm a lot sarcastic, and it's only a little funny.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was all unexpected for me. It all came unexpectedly, and I'm grateful that it did.
Tell me how that happened.
So, it's a great story. So I was working with Matthew Perry. I was training Matthew Perry from Friends.
Mm-hmm.
I was professional, personal trainer.
Right, that's when I met you. You were
at a very successful training business, celebrity training business. And I'm working with Matthew and getting him in shape for the show. And he and I became great friends, and we're still great friends. And we went to all the Kings games together, right? And this was in 2012 when the Kings did a run for the Stanley Cup, and they won the Stanley Cup for the first time. So we're in the Staples Center, and it's the Stanley Cup playoffs or the finals. And we're in the VIP room underneath the Staples Center. And it's this tiny little room that, the celebrities go to in between periods so they don't get bothered. And it was literally packed with celebrities and me.
Yeah.
Nobody. Like, who's this one non-celebrity hairless bald guy in the room? And in walks Tony Robbins, right? And I turn to Matthew and I go, holy shit, it's Tony Robbins. And he goes, really? That's who you're excited about in here right now? Every celebrity in Los Angeles is in here. Like Vince Vaughn and Will Ferrell. And I go, he's amazing. He's helped all these people. I've read his books. I love his work. He goes, well, why don't you go tell him? And I go, oh my God, I'm not going to do that. People come up and bug you every 5 seconds. I'm not going to be that guy to him. And he goes, no, just tell him you love what he does. You don't have to ask him for a picture or anything. And he walked right by me, and I chickened out. And probably because I've worked with celebrities and I've seen people come up to them, and it's always awkward.
You don't want to be the annoying guy.
Yeah, it's awkward, and it annoys me when I'm having a conversation with a celebrity and somebody comes up and interrupts. So I don't want to be that guy. So I don't know, a little bit later, I'm walking back through the tunnel to the game, and he's standing there. Tony Robbins is standing there and texting on his phone, and he looks up at me, and he goes, hey, how's it going? And I think he knew. So I walked over, and I go, look, I never do this. I know everybody says that, but I actually don't. And I'm a huge fan of yours, and I love your work. And he sticks out his hands. He says, what's your name? What do you do? And we start talking, and he goes, have you ever been to my seminar? And I go, no, I haven't. He goes, well, I'm doing one next month in San Jose, and I'd love it if you'd come as my personal VIP guest. And I said, you're kidding me. And he said, no, here's my, secretary's information. And he hooked me up, and he VIP'd me. It was amazing. And I went there, and I jumped up and down for 4 days, and I had this amazing experience. And at one point in the seminar, he had us reach into the air and pull these moments into our life, and moments of gratitude and love. And I get emotional almost every time I talk about it, because it just cracked me open. Because at the time I was so angry. I had a screenplay that I wrote stolen from me and made into a movie. I had a deal fall apart with the production company, and I had to go back to training people. My dreams of a screenwriter were just crushed, becoming a screenwriter. So I was so angry and bitter because I had helped all these people, and they got really successful. And I was like, where's mine? And so I'm pulling these moments in my heart, and it was just like, it was beautiful. And I realized that I'm just supposed to help people. That's what I'm supposed to do. That's my gift. That's what I'm here to do. That's what I'm here to share. And in one of the moments, it was a future moment, I saw 2 small children. I saw a little girl and a little boy. And I thought, God, that's weird. I never wanted children, but that just looks like a beautiful life. My wife and 2 small children. And I came back from the seminar, and I was quiet like I've never been in my life. And I said to my wife, she's like, wow, you look and seem really different. And I said, I think I might want children. And she's like, oh my God, what happened? Who are you? And so right after that, a couple people said to me who didn't know each other, said, you need to go do breath work. And I said, what's breath work? And they said, just go do it. So I found this place that isn't there anymore, and I went and did a breathwork class, and I had this massive experience where all the anger, all the cynicism, all the resentment just left me, and I was crying fetal position on the floor, and then I felt filled with gratitude and love and connected to the universe in a way that I've never experienced in my life. And it was as real and as undeniable as like being angry on the 405 freeway. It was that undeniable for me. And I came home and my wife was like, "Oh my God, you look even more different than before." And I made love to my wife that night, which is not my style.
Not my style.
It's not how I do it. And I made love to my wife and I said, "I just made a baby." She woke up at some point in this lovemaking session. So I said, I just made a baby. And she said, "Shut up, you idiot." And I said, no, I felt the soul of the baby come through me. And that's something I would never say to anyone listening. I'm not that guy. I'm not that.
No,
I'm from Boston. I'm like a, East Coast guy.
I get it.
So that was the conception of my daughter. And the next day my head was quiet like I've never felt in my life. And I thought, I have to do this stuff. I'm going to do this breathwork thing every day for the next year and see what happens to me. And it changed me. It changed me. My wife is like, "I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. You're a different person. You're more patient. You're more kind. You're more loving. You're more present. You're a different guy. So just keep doing it." So I did it every day. And what was interesting was like in the first couple months, all that stuff cleared out. There was a ton of shit. There was 35 years of just anger and resentment and things that had happened to me. I was stabbed once. I was jumped, 10 times, and all these different things. And all that stuff just cleared out of me. So, and then after that, I was just filled with gratitude and love. And it was just amazing. And I started using it as a GPS system. I was like, okay, what do I need now? I'm going to lay down and breathe towards that and see what to do next. And it just literally guided my life. And so I took the teacher training about a year after doing it. And just to understand more about it, not to actually teach it. I was never going to teach this weird thing. I wasn't even telling people I was doing it.
Sure.
Because I'm from Boston. I'm not I don't do weird hippie breathing things. So took the teacher training and I suffered through this. It was as weird and as hippie and as new agey as I had thought it was going to be. Someone said that they were an alien in the room and no one blinked. I was like, we're all just going to go along with that, or no one's going to say anything.
A lot of women in long flowing dresses named Maya.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And people who stand and stare in your eyes and too long, you know.
How are you?
They don't break eye contact ever. Yes. No, how are you really? So it was painful, but I got a lot out of it and I had an experience. And so I took all these different teacher trainings and I started studying with all these different teachers over the next couple of years. And someone asked me to teach a class and I was like, "Oh God, I'm not going to teach a class." And they said, "Come on, just do it at my, my gym, my private studio." So I said, okay. And I invited some of my friends. And in fact, Matthew Perry was there for one of my first classes. And he said to me, "This is the best you I've ever seen. This is the best version of you. This is what you're meant to be doing. This is your gift." And a bunch of other people who came said that too. They said, "This is incredible. And this is what you're supposed to do." And I thought, really? This is what I'm supposed to do? I don't think you get it. I want to be I want to have a TV show or I want to do this. I don't want to have people breathe on the floor. It's not what I'm meant to do. So I fought it for a while, but it just grew and grew and grew. And there's something really incredible about taking people through this experience. I feel elevated when I teach. I feel like I am taking myself to another level, that I am my best self. I truly am my best self. I leave the classroom floating because I see that people are changing. I've watched other people who have been doing it with me for years. I've watched them change their lives through this work. And it's, I don't think there's anything better that I'm going to do in this lifetime than help somebody change their life in a profound way like that. So it is what I'm meant to do now. I've owned that. This is my mission. This is my gift. This is what I'm here to share. So now my goal is to share it with as many people as I can on the planet and change as many lives as I can through this breathing technique. And I think I'm the guy to do it because I think, these women come to my class and they come up to me and they go, "Okay, my husband will come and he'll do this because you're this East Coast guy and you don't, you're not too hippie, you're not too new agey." I bring a lot of humor to it. I joke that I'm the Bill Burr meets Tony Robbins of breathwork, right?
Well, you are kind of like that, and you're very straightforward about, the way the mind thinks. You're not woo-woo, let's put it that way. You're very honest about
right
the way most people would think in a negative way, and you're very honest about your own, your own past and your own stuff.
Sure.
I mean, one of the things you said that really stuck out for me, and it seems very obvious once you said it, but it really hit me, which was when you complain, nobody wants to help you.
Yeah.
That really knocked me. I was like, man, because I'm a little bit of a complainer.
Right.
And, well, I'm a big complainer.
Right.
And I'm like, because I actually think
that's actually a quote from Stephen Hawking.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't take credit for it, but he said that, and he has every reason in the world to complain, right? And that's the thing about excuses and complaining, and they're valid. Like, you have every reason in the world sometimes to complain. You have every reason in the world to not get up, but
yeah, I mean, I complain about stuff that isn't really worth complaining about.
Sure.
I mean, really nothing is, but I mean, it's sort of relative to what's going on. If I were, my leg got run over by a car, now that's something to complain about.
Sure.
Somebody slighting me and speaking poorly to me, I mean, who cares?
Do you think if you won the lottery, you'd complain about the taxes?
No. No. I know somebody that kind of did win a showbiz lottery. He got a huge, big overall deal.
Uh-huh.
And he was so upset at the amount of taxes he had to pay that he went and became a Republican.
Oh, my God.
Because it changed his whole political view because he was so angry about how much money. I go, but you made like millions of dollars.
I know.
Yeah, but they took like 800,000. I go, so what?
I know.
Look what's left.
Yeah, I can easily fall into that. If I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not doing the things I need to do, the breath work and the meditation and the exercise, if I'm not doing that, I can fall into that. Look, I've had times, to go to a lot of these classes, I will drive, really far. I'll drive the 405, the 101 to the 405 to the 10 to get to a class. And so I can be pretty it's aggro, and then I find the parking space and I'm right for the space. It's my space, and then someone tries to pull in on it, and I'm like, look, I will choke you out right now, and then I'm going to go put gratitude and love in people's hearts right after that. So I'm still have that Boston guy in me.
Right.
It's just, to see where I've come from, I always joke, like, I'm not enlightened at all, but if you look at where I've come from, I kind of am, in a sense, from how far I've come. But there's still such a long way for me to go. And the most I'm ever going to be is human. And I think if the Dalai Lama had to drive in LA traffic every day, he'd be swearing his head off and want to slap people.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. He because life can be a real agitating thing.
Right.
And if you're in a bad place, everything can be an annoyance.
Yeah.
And the same stuff could happen when you're in a good place and it doesn't bother you at all.
Totally.
So, it's hard to know what's going to happen each day.
Well, it's your perspective. I share sometimes where I go, look, I'm sitting in my jacuzzi in my backyard. I've got 2 beautiful kids who are healthy. I've got a beautiful wife. I've got a dog. I've got this great house. I've got 2 businesses. And my life is amazing, and I'm so grateful and filled with love. And then I go to sleep, and I wake up, and the dog is taking a shit somewhere. The kids are screaming. My wife hates me and doesn't want to have sex for no reason. And my house is in the valley where it's 110 degrees. And I'm like, what happened to my life in the middle of the night while I was asleep? The facts of my life are exactly the same, but it's my perspective is totally shifted in the middle of the night while I'm asleep. So I Ray Bradbury says, I spend I step on a landmine first thing in the morning, and I spend the rest of the day trying to put the pieces of me back together again. And so how do I shift my perspective? How do I get back on track? And so the first thing I do when I get up is I do some breath work. And maybe I do it for 10 minutes, maybe I do it for 30 minutes. But that's the first thing I do, is then I try to clear out that noise out of my head. And then I come out from doing the breath work, and I love my kids, and I love my wife, and everything is beautiful, and everything is right again. So it's just that simple practice, of getting recentered and shifting my perspective. It's all perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of look at it like I'm a computer. My default setting is irritated.
Yep.
And when I go to sleep, the computer resets to the factory default settings, and it's most of them. Sometimes not all of them go back to the default. And then I get up, and I'm like, oh shit, this?
Yep. It's so funny
I
because
gotta do this again.
I said something similar in a class a few weeks ago. I said, my default setting is angry, irritated asshole. And I have to reset it all the time.
But see, that helps people when they hear that,
Yeah.
as opposed to somebody going, "Life is so beautiful all the
Oh
time."
God, I've
I
worked.
mean, that can make me angry sometimes when I hear somebody like that because I don't believe them a lot of the time, even if they're telling the truth. I don't.
This is going to sound very egotistic, but it is what it is. It's the truth. So I worked at a couple meditation studios, and my classes were some of the only ones that were sold out, with 60 people in the room and 20 people on the wait list. And these other teachers, would have like 10 people in the room. And someone says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't know, but I don't walk in with the voice that goes, 'Hi everyone, how you doing today? Mercury's in retrograde, so I know you're.'" I'm like, whose voice is that? What voice are you using right now?
Right.
I walk in like, "Oh my God, I almost just killed someone over here on the way over
Right.
here," and like, so people say that it's it's more real. I don't know any other way to be. I've worked so hard to become comfortable in my skin with who I am, good parts and the bad parts, that I'm not about to change it because I'm standing up in front of a room full of people.
Well, that's what people respond to, and that's what I responded to. I was very happy to see that it wasn't, a character you were playing.
No.
Um,
I mean, I'm a bit of a character anyway.
Well, that's okay. I mean, we all have, these sort of, characters that we have to sort of move through the world that
Yeah.
we've learned to do. And some of them work, and some of them you got to get rid of.
Sure. I could be less inappropriate at times.
I know. I get in trouble for, I say the older I get, the more effort I'm spending not saying the things I'm thinking.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a tremendous amount of effort. And sometimes, what's interesting about that? There's a lot of benefit to not, shooting your mouth off and, being right and all that stuff. But what nobody ever really talks about is sometimes the feeling of not doing it is pretty bad too. It's like I could have nailed that motherfucker.
I know.
Put him
I
in
know.
his place. I could have.
I know. You can say it in your mind and just imagine that you would have crushed him. I know. I've been there. There's lots of time. But it doesn't end when you do it. Like, that's the thing I've learned. This Facebook is a perfect example of that. You make a great comment and then it goes back and forth and it just goes forever and then everybody sees it. I heard something the other day that I loved. It said, being angry is like, wetting your pants. Everybody else can see it, but only you can feel it. And I thought, oh, it's so true.
Yeah.
And so there's, like, I literally spend way too much time not saying things on Facebook. I type it out and then I go, nope, I'm not going to do that. And then I have to erase it. And I'm like, okay, this is just not a good use of my time. There's so many better things that I could be doing out there.
Well, that stuff is addicting too because you get really used to it, and then it's like, and also when you think
They've
about
set it up to be addicting. I just read this book called Everybody Lies, which is fantastic, and it's all about Google data searches and what people are really searching for, and Facebook, and how it's really set up like a slot machine. It hits certain pleasure centers in your head, and oftentimes it makes us feel like shit. But sometimes we get that hit where it makes us feel good, and we keep going back for more. It's just like gambling. And they've designed it that way, to be that way.
Oh, it is. It does feel diabolical.
Yeah.
And, I don't...
It has its benefits, though. I mean, look, I promote my classes on there, and people come to my classes because of Facebook. They see it on there, and they see other people sharing about their experiences on there, and that brings people in to do something which is really good for you. So it has its benefits, and it has its, downside as well.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm doing the podcast was I reconnected with somebody from 25 years ago on Facebook, and that's how I started to want to do the podcast. Because he had done one, and I was saying, I have this inkling to do this thing, and he goes, well, let me help you. And so he's been helping me and showing me stuff and been really encouraging, and that's kind of how it got started. Had I not gone on Facebook and started talking to him, I probably wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, it's great.
And I resisted doing it, and I'll tell you why. It's exactly what you said earlier. I've been doing different sort of things over the last 30-some years, from different therapy to body work to changing my food to meditation to, all kinds of different, workshops. I've done a ton of different stuff, and I never told anybody about it
Yep.
because I didn't want people to laugh at me.
Mm.
And I didn't want to have to explain myself. And also, I was working as a comedy writer. Those are some of the most glib,
Yep.
judgmental, sarcastic people. They're great to be around for laughs.
Sure.
But I was never comfortable talking about that side of what I did.
Yeah.
Just for my own, growth or whatever you want to call it. So I kind of kept it to myself.
Right.
And I thought, well, geez, why not try something that I would want to hear? Like I would have wanted to hear this interview with you 30 years ago.
I think it's great.
Yeah. So, let's hope it works.
I think that, we stop ourselves from doing the things we really want to do because we worry so much about what our people are going to think of us. And it's funny that you said those comedy writers. I mean, comedy writers are great, but most of them are really unhappy. I know a lot of them. They're really unhappy.
You're looking at one.
And so at some point in your life, you go, look, we're only here for a short time. Do I want to get some happiness out of this life? Do I want to maybe feel good? Because it's there. It's available. Other people are walking around and feeling good. So what do I do to get there? And so, the first step is just having an open mind and be willing to try something you've never tried before and not give a shit what people think about you. And because at the end of your life, when you're on your deathbed, those people aren't going to matter, and their opinions of you aren't going to matter. What's going to matter is did I do the things I wanted to do? Did I say the things I wanted to say? Did I try everything? Did I love? Did I squeeze all the joy and happiness that I could out of this lifetime? And that's what I realized. It's
yeah.
I wasn't going to have kids, but it's the greatest joy I've ever experienced. It's the greatest love I've ever experienced. I didn't know that level of love was available to me in this lifetime, and I almost missed that. I almost missed out on that. And I don't think kids are for everybody, and I'm not saying that to push kids. I think we're overpopulated as it is, and I think there's moments I go, oh my God, look at this world I'm bringing up these kids in. It's scary. But I don't know. It's just, for me, it really, I had to let go of who I thought I was supposed to be so that I could step into who I was meant to become.
Yeah.
And that is just a dad and someone who helps people.
Yeah. Well, that's quite beautiful to know that and to be bringing that to reality. I mean, it's here for you. I mean,
Yeah.
You're doing it. Let me ask you this. Where did breathwork originate?
So, I, like most people, I went down the rabbit hole that is Google and searched and searched and searched. And so Leonard Orr and, God, now his name is escaping me. Leonard Orr is one of the creators. There's a couple guys. And the holotropic is sort of the first one. But I think, pranayama breathing from India has been around for centuries.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's inventing anything new with the breath. People love to put a name on it. They love to call it something. They love to put a spin on it. And that's what they've done. They've added music to it. I have music in mind. I have people lie down, but in India, they were doing this sitting up, for hundreds and, thousands of years or whatever. So, when I see someone like Wim Hof, who I think is awesome, the Iceman, who's bringing a lot of attention to breathing, and I get people who come to my class who are like, oh, I've done Wim Hof's thing, and he calls it the Wim Hof method. It's like, nobody's really inventing anything new with the breath. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, how much different can you be than another human being?
Right, but I think that anyone who brings attention to it and gets people breathing better or breathing in a different way or showing them breathing techniques, I think they're great. So I think Wim Hof is amazing. And he actually said, I listened to this great interview with him on Joe Rogan. He said that he does all this crazy stuff like, climb Everest in shorts and do the ice, sit in the ice for 3 hours just to bring attention to the breathing. And I was like, that's great. I get that, So I think he's great. But the originators of it, it's like there is this whole world of people teaching it, and everyone's like, oh, that's my method. I created that. It's like, you didn't create the breath. You didn't.
Right.
There's a lot of healers out there, quote unquote healers. And my thing with that is like, you can call yourself whatever you want. If you were actually a healer, you would have a line 8 miles down the road if you could put your hands on people and heal them. People heal themselves. I'm not a healer. I'm going to show someone how to fix themselves, how to take care of themselves, how to get better. I'm kind of a guide. So, nobody out there is going to heal you, but I think that's become very popular because people don't want to do the work, basically. They just want a pill to fix them. They just want somebody to put their hand on their head and heal them. Everyone's looking for that quick fix. You don't want to do the work. And the work is not that hard. That's what you discover when you actually start to do it. Laying on the floor and breathing for 25 minutes is not that hard, but it's hard for the first couple minutes. And then you push through and you break through on the other side. And it's hard to be consistent. But, I always say, if you do what is hard, life will be easy, but if you do what is easy, life will be hard, So it's up to you what you want to do.
Yeah.
And it's just about showing up and putting in the work, and stop waiting around for somebody to show up and just magically fix your life. Stop waiting for the quick, easy fix and do something about it. Take some action.
And when you said you decided to do the breathing for every day for a year to see what would happen. Were you doing that on your own, or you were taking classes every day? Or
I was mostly doing it on my own. I would go to a class occasionally, and the breathing is interesting. Wherever you do it, it's a little different, and every time you do it, it's a little different. So I was having these massive experiences on my own, and then I'd go to a class, and then when there's other people in the room, there's the energy of that, and that's a huge experience. And so there's all these different experiences I was having. It was pretty incredible, but mostly on my own.
So your website has like a video of...
Yeah, so if you go to my
example?
website and you put in your email, you'll get a free video with the technique on it. And you could just watch that and do it on your own, You could do the live classes with me where I guide you through and I show you the technique again and I push you and give cues, and that's really helpful. There's an energy that happens with the live class because you're in your space. You're doing it on your own in your space, which is great. All the things you said, you can let go easier, you feel safe, but then you've got somebody pushing you just like a trainer. And I've had people say oh God, with the headphones on, it felt like you were in my head. It was amazing, So, and you can if you go to a live class in Los Angeles or wherever, that's pretty incredible too. So every way you do it, it's going to be a little different. Every time you do it, it's going to be different. And so that's what's incredible about this. It doesn't really get boring. It just keeps changing, because it transforms you. It's very transformative work. And if you have stuff going on in your life, a lot of people really come in when they're going through a breakup, a relationship breakup, or it works really well for that to get you through a relationship breakup. Or grief is one of the biggest things that I've ever found. It's been the most profound thing I've ever discovered to help people clear grief, because grief tends to get stuck in us and it gets stuck in the lungs. And it really helps you move through that grief like nothing I've ever experienced. But it also has all these creative uses too. Like you want to write a book, you want to create a podcast, you want to create a business, right? Your head goes, you can't create a business online. You don't even know how to use Facebook properly. And you turn that critic off when you breathe. You turn it off and then you go, I'm going to just go to work. And then the critic turns back on and you go, all right, I'm going to lay down and breathe again and turn the critic off and get back to work on the project again. So it's like that. It's really powerful in that way if you use it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I was, after I took your classes, I went, how am I going to do this on my own? I don't know how to, because I have a tendency, I think humans do, to just sort of get lazy about consistency or I'm not, it's not going to be as good. And where am I going to find the time?
Yep.
How am I going to make all these noises when I got family people around?
Yeah, your brain is making up all kinds of reasons, excuses, and justifications to not do anything that's hard, difficult, or uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you have to say, shut up, and just set it, the time, and do it. You have to push through. There's Mel Robbins is this great speaker. She's incredible, and she talks about the 5-second rule. She says, if you just count backwards from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you just do it right after that, it's a way to trick your brain. It's incredible. There's some incredible interviews out there that I recommend listening to her. And so, it's really about not listening to your head. Our brain is designed to protect us, and it's really good at that. God, that person's not safe, or this, help you figure out things logically, but it's also designed to stop you from doing a lot of things that you are meant to do. Should you get, some woman that you just met's name tattooed on your neck? Absolutely not. But should you lay down and breathe? And even if you don't think, you should do it, or you know how to do it properly, whatever. Yeah, no, lay down and breathe, lay down and meditate. You don't have to like have all the things in place.
Yeah.
You know, should you work out? Yes, you should work out. You know, should you try and create your business and follow your heart? Yes, you should do that. You know, so sometimes our head isn't our best friend, and that's a weird thing to understand. That's a weird thing to get, is like my brain isn't always my friend. In fact, it often isn't my friend. And when you can start to really understand that, you know, I learned that when I, you know, discovered I was an alcoholic, and that, you know, I have alcoholism, and my thoughts are not my friend, and I had to take direction from other people in my life, you know, 17 years ago to get sober, to change the course of my life. And it's a weird thing as a grown man to go like, wow, I don't know how to run my life properly. I need help from somebody else. It takes a lot of conflict internally and most often externally to get to that place, which I did. But I learned that I changed the course of my life, you know, by taking direction from other people.
I was interviewing another person a number of months ago, and he said the two hardest things to say to somebody is, I don't know and I need help. And those are hard things to say.
Yeah, but once you start to get like a muscle, like once you start to use it and say it and get free, it will really change you. Like I often say, I don't know. I like people that say, I don't know. I trust them more. People who never say, I don't know, are full of shit because you don't know everything, right?
Well, you're not born knowing anything other than that you're alive, and that's about it.
Right. It's great. And then I need help has changed my life as well, because I will reach out and ask for help, and I will get amazing help just because I said, I need help. It's really simple. And people help me all the time.
Yeah.
And then I'm tapping into a well of people that I know, a massive resource of people. I can't do everything on my own. I don't know how to do anything. I need people to, you know, look, I can go on YouTube now and learn how to fix. I fixed my oven the other day on YouTube. It was incredible. One of the burners wasn't working, and there was this guy had a video, and he showed 3 different problems that it could be, and I figured out which one it was, and I fixed the oven. That was going to cost me $100 for a service call.
Yeah.
Incredible.
What was it?
It was just it got clogged up on the side, and the gas wasn't getting through. So I put a pin through this little hole in the side of the burner, which I didn't even know was there. And then the gas could get through and hit the igniter, and boom, it was working.
Oh, you must have felt so good.
I felt like a man.
Oh,
I felt
man,
like
I love
like
that
a man.
kind of stuff.
And I showed my wife, I'm like, I fixed the oven, babe. Look at this. I fixed it.
Right.
And so YouTube helps me, you know.
I know. I love when I have computer stuff. I go on there, and a 12-year-old teaches me how to do stuff. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, oh, thanks, kid.
I wish it could help me raise my kids, but
yeah. Well, good luck on that one. That's, that's its own.
It is
own set of issues.
Yes, but you know, there's good books out there and stuff too. So, I'm doing the best I can. You know, I made a conscious decision to have children, and so I feel like the most important thing I do now is to be a great dad. And it's hard to balance everything. It's hard to balance 2 businesses and taking care of myself and taking care of kids. But I've learned that I have to take care of myself first to be a great dad. You know, you have to put on your own oxygen mask first before you can help anybody else. So there are people like, oh, I'm so busy, I can't do this. I'm like, yeah, you're busy, like, but this is why you need it. You know, this will bring into focus what is really important, what really matters, because I'll think, oh my God, I've got all these things I got to do. And then I'll lay down and breathe and I'll go, nope, I just got to go hug my kids. And then I'm going to eat something, and then I'll prioritize those things in a different way now.
Yeah. I know sometimes I don't know what you think of this. I'll say to myself, I'm not going to act this way toward my kids again. That felt really bad. You know, when I got so upset or screamed at them or got annoyed and impatient, and I feel bad. And I promise myself I'm not going to do it again because it's just not beneficial, and then I do it again.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, I did it again.
I know. Well, so it's about shifting that behavior. How do you do that? You know, and I say that to people all the time. People go, oh, well, you got to love yourself. You got to do self-love. How do I do that? How do I do self-love? You know, you got to love yourself before you can be in a relationship with somebody else. How do I do that? This thing actually brings in self-love. It shows you how to love yourself. And then when you are more patient with yourself, you start to get less judgmental of yourself. You stop to beating yourself up so much. You can actually be that way to other people. You know, if you're beating yourself up all the time, you're judgmental of other people and beating them up all the time. So when you breathe this way and it clears out all that judgment and you let go of any shame you're feeling or beating yourself up all the time, because we all focus on our mistakes and things that we do wrong instead of looking at all the amazing things we do right every day and all the amazing things we've gotten right in our lives. When you start to do things like, when you start to focus on that, you can become a lot more patient. And there is that pause button that I have that I didn't have before. So do I never yell at my kids? No. I mean, I have. And it's a reactive thing. And I feel horrible afterwards. And so I have to let myself off the hook because I'm human. And then B, go, can I do better next time? And actually, how do I do better? I'm not, I yelled because I'm stressed out. I'm stressed out because I didn't do breath work this morning. I'm stressed out because I didn't work out. So I need to take care of myself so I can be a better dad.
It's an interesting thing about reactivity. That Eckhart Tolle, I've probably read some of that stuff, but he says unconsciousness equals reactivity. Reactivity equals unconsciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And we think, and I've heard people say this, by what you did, you made me get mad.
Mm-hmm.
They skip the middle step, which is a choice on how to react.
Right.
Which is really hard to do when somebody, does something that's super annoying or, bothersome. The natural response is to react. Except now, as an adult, we do have that choice to say, well, do I really need to react? Does this really have anything to do with me? Was this something really directed at me? Is this more about the other person?
Yeah. Why are you giving people that much power? Right? I mean, why are you giving people enough power to let you get mad? Like you're giving your power away. If people are getting you pissed off, there's a great book I read. It was called You Can't Make Me Angry. And it basically talks about that we're all responsible for our own feelings. And no matter what somebody does, you're still responsible for your own feelings. And so I don't want to give people that kind of power in my life. There's no word that you can call me that I'm going to go bananas and just go nuts. And so why would I let somebody have that kind of switch on me where you could call me a name or a word or say something like that to me and let somebody have that kind of switch on, like where they could just say that and that's all they had to do is make me go bananas. It's just like I'm not gonna give somebody that.
I always love that back when you're like a teenager and in a group of people hanging out and they'd say, you get called a name and then you had to defend yourself because you got called a name when the purpose of it was to get you to upset.
Yeah.
And if you don't get upset, then there's something wrong with you because you're not standing up for yourself.
Or it must be true.
You know,
I grew up in Boston and, it's a tough spot back then. And, I think there was a derogatory word about, homosexuals, right? I don't want to say the word. I don't want to use it. But, they would call you that. And so if you didn't defend yourself, then you must be, gay or whatever, right? And so, which now it's like laughable. Like I would just laugh at somebody if they said that to me.
I lived in Boston for 2 years. I'm very aware of the tough guy mentality.
Yeah, my joke is like I tell people at my class like, there's no awards given out for not crying. People will be like, that was the first time I've cried in 5 years. I'm like, well, nobody's giving you an award for not crying for 5 years. You need to let that stuff out. That's how we get sick. But in Boston, I go, growing up, if I had a feeling, I had to push it down inside of me, do a shot, and punch somebody in the face to make the feeling go away.
I had a friend who was, he grew up in Southie, and he was a really smart guy, and he was telling me he got into something with a kid at school, elementary school, and the guy grabbed him, by the collar, and he pulled him to his face, and he goes, "Why don't you go read a book?" It was a slam on my buddy because he was smart.
Right.
Why didn't you go read a book?
Yeah, I mean it's a funny place, Boston. It's got quite a mix of like education, like highly educated people, and then really blue collar, and it's a tough town. I think it's changed a bit, but I think it's still a lot of the same,
Well, part of it's the harsh climate and the people that came over from England.
Yeah, well,
settled-
Irish. There's more Irish people in Boston.
And Irish too, yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in an area called the Irish Riviera, and it's like 25 minutes south of the city, and it's the 13 most Irish towns in America. Mine was the 5th most Irish town in America.
What town was it?
It's called Pembroke.
I know Pembroke.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
you do. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Pembroke, and it was beautiful suburbs, beautiful houses, beautiful neighborhood. But like there was a lot of city mentality in there, like people sort of like thinking they were tough and coming from the city, maybe because their parents actually migrated down from the city. And there was a lot of Irish people from Ireland there. And so I just thought growing up, everybody had 17 brothers and sisters and was redheaded and got drunk and beat the shit out of each other. And it was crazy. It was a crazy time. I mean, I didn't know I was an alcoholic because I had two, DWIs, right? 2 5150s or whatever they call them, but my best friend had 4, and all my friends had at least 2 drinking and driving charges. So I thought this is just the way it is, right? Until I moved to California, and I was like, oh, you guys don't drink until you pass out? I don't understand.
Well, yeah, these little subcultures, things become okay that for maybe the general population is not really so okay.
Right.
Or normalized, That's an amazing thing to to come from that. And I'm sure there's people that you grew up with that would listen to this, if they listen to it, and would go, "What happened to him?"
Yeah, I know. I've thought of that. Like, I did a breathwork class back in Boston. I was going back there, and some people had asked me like, "Hey, will you do this?" And the funny thing about breathwork is people really have no idea what they're in for. They think it's going to be one thing, and it's never that thing. Whatever they think it's going to be, they think it's going to be maybe I'm just going to be sitting there talking, and they're going to be breathing, relaxing, and it's going to be this calming experience. They don't realize it's going to be this big, huge, emotional experience, and it's going to be very physical, very emotional, and you're going to feel amazing afterwards. It's going to be profound, and like people often say, it's like a year of therapy in one session, in one class. But it's never what you expect. So they come into the room, and then afterwards, I just love to look around especially when it's a whole room full of people who have never done it before, and they're all just sitting there like, what the hell just happened? What was that? And it was a trip to do it with all the people I grew up with, or not all of them, but a lot of them. It's sad. I actually lost a lot of people growing up. And so, looking around that room, I know everybody's story. I know all the trauma and all the heartbreak and all the loss that they've gone through. And so it was hard for me to keep it together at some point, and there was people in the room who were like, divorced from each other. And it was great. I'm actually going back in October, and they're like, hey, will you do another breathwork class? And I'm like, okay, maybe I'll do another class again. And because of course I want to share this with the people that I love, that I grew up with, you know, of course. I didn't think they'd even be open to it. And they are, who doesn't want help at this point in their life? It's like everybody wants a solution to feeling better. How do I feel better? And so this is the fastest, easiest, cheapest way that I've ever found to feel better. And it works. And like I say, do it one time with me and then do it on your own. I'm not trying to build a cult. You don't need me. It helps to have somebody guide you. It definitely helps to have somebody push you, especially in the beginning. Get with somebody for a while and learn from a teacher if you can. But it's not about like building a giant cult. I would love to be doing this for stadiums of people, 5,000, 10,000 people, Tony Robbins style, and maybe someday that will happen if that's what it's meant to be. Just because I love it and I love helping people in that way. So maybe that'll happen. I'd love to have massive classes online all over the world, hundreds and maybe thousands of people in a class online. That's the dream. That's the vision. If that's what's meant to be, if that's what's supposed to be, that's what's going to happen. I've learned that the hard way. Like I can't force anything. I can't push it. I'm going to promote it, and I'm going to,
do all the footwork and
do all the footwork and see what happens. But if it's up to somebody else, it's not up to me,
Let me ask you about one of the things I saw on your website was couples work. What's that?
So
like?
I love couple sessions. So couple session, and I've done a ton of them. I've been people they like come in and they've got like an argument and they want me to take a side. It's hilarious. And I go, no, I'm not going to do that. But here's what we're going to do. You're going to sit knee to knee, and here's how it goes. You sit knee to knee and you go, one of the things I judge about you that's really about me is you are an asshole when you get home from work, or whatever, right? And then the other person goes, thank you. Because I tell them to say thank you, right? And then they go, and then it's their turn. One of the things I judge about you that's really about me is this. And they go, thank you. And this goes back and forth for a while, and they get this stuff off their chest that they need to get off their chest. And then we go back and forth with, one of the things I love about you is this. And they say, oh, thank you. And then one of the things I love about you is this. And they start to say all the things they love about each other. And then I have them lay down and breathe together. And inevitably, almost every single time, at like halfway through the breathing, they end up holding hands. And it's this beautiful thing. And when they sit up, I can see that their relationship has changed. I've watched it transform relationships in front of my eyes. That's the beauty of it. It's like they've gotten these things out. I mean, we hold these things inside. We're afraid if we say how we really feel, the other person's going to get defensive, because they are. But this is a safe space to say that stuff in. And then when you breathe, you actually clear it out. One of the things that I do that I think is the most powerful thing, or one of the most powerful things that I do, is I call it transformational letter. It's a workshop that I do. Mm-hmm. And it was born out of someone that I was very close with, a guy I helped for about 10 years that I loved, who went to Berkeley on a scholarship, incredible writer, incredible guy. I watched him transform his life from being in the foster care system and being abused. And, he was an alcoholic, and then he got his life together and got sober and got a scholarship to Berkeley, and it's just amazing. He committed suicide a year and a half ago, and he wouldn't do the breath work. There was a bunch of stuff that happened to him, but
you said he wouldn't do it?
He wouldn't do the breath work. Okay. I tried to get him to do it, and he got scared and backed off, and it didn't want to go there, and it breaks my heart. And I didn't know that he was in this much pain, and he committed suicide, and it was one of the most painful things I've ever experienced. And I sought out some help, and this person suggested that I write a letter to him saying everything I need to say. And I was like, oh, I've heard that before. He said, no, now I want you to write a letter back from him saying everything you wish he would say, everything you want him to say. And then I did breath work after that. It was really powerful. So I created this workshop around this. And I actually did the same process around my father, who's still alive, but he's never going to say what I need him to say. He just denies everything. He's just not going to own his shit. And we all have people like that in our life. Yeah. And if we have to wait for other people to say what we need them to say to be okay, then we're screwed. So this is about not waiting. This is about taking control of your life. So you write those letters, and then you lay down and breathe, and it's transformative. It changes you. And it's a powerful workshop. So that's one of the workshops I do. I do a whole series of different workshops and with the breath work. So I like to combine things with breath work if I can, and I think it's really cool. So I'm also doing teacher trainings, and I'm teaching people how to teach this now. So those have been filling up pretty quick, and that's been really cool, because it's, over 2 days I'll do a weekend, and I really get to stretch it out and share a lot with people.
So you can learn this in a weekend, you're saying?
Yeah.
The beginnings.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of it is experience, but you learn, I'll teach people the basics and some of the stuff and how to work with people one-on-one. And then I have 2 different teacher trainings. One of them is basics and working with people one-on-one, and the other one is working with couples and groups, right? So I have two a weekend-long teacher trainings. They're each 2 days.
It sounds like even if you, like you said, you took the classes not to become a teacher.
Right.
But just to learn more. That seems like it would be really valuable.
There is a lot of stuff that I have people doing in there just for their own experience, just for their own growth. And, I actually went through this one person's course. He had 4 levels. I went through all 4 levels 4 times. Because wow. I kept transforming. Every time I did it, it was about me. It was about me. But there was not enough like, hey, what do I do when a person does this? Like, he never answered a lot of questions. So I try to address that in my teacher training, where like, this is what you do when a person's getting too tweaked out too quick, or this is what you do when the person's like wanting to fall asleep in the session, or there's a lot.
I had a little of the sleep thing in the first one.
Yeah, people will do that.
I was yawning, and I was, really forcing myself to keep going.
Well, yawns are good because it's a sign that we need to take in more oxygen. It just means you're not probably breathing properly. No. And looking at you now, you're not. breathing into your belly enough, right? So most of us don't breathe into our belly enough. One of the cool things that happens from doing this breath work on a semi-regular basis or a regular basis is you start to breathe into your diaphragm, into your belly on a regular basis. Most people are breathing really shallow in their
now
chest.
I'm all self-conscious.
Sorry. I'll stop looking at you.
That's okay.
So most people are breathing really shallow in their chest or holding their breath, which is really bad for you.
I do that when I think.
Mm-hmm.
I catch myself not breathing.
Right.
It's almost like what I'm convincing myself is that I'm taking oxygen in and holding it, so I don't have to concentrate on breathing, and my brain has now more oxygen for this. But it really is just this: I'm holding my breath and I'm thinking about something, and then I have to kind of gasp.
Well, there is a breath hold technique, but that's not what you're doing. You're doing something else.
No, it doesn't feel that good to me.
No.
But I catch myself, like, sometimes people say, what's going on? You're making this weird noise.
Right.
I'm like, oh yeah, I'm thinking, and I forgot to breathe.
If you did breath work on a regular basis, not only would it transform your life from doing the breath work, but you would start to breathe better. You'd start to breathe into your belly, and that would change your life as well. Because if you're not breathing right, I mean, like, breathing controls so much. I mean, it controls 70% of your digestive function. People don't realize that. It helps with the sleep. It helps with back issues. It helps with your alkalinity in your body. It helps with, there's just this massive list of things that it actually helps. And people just take it for granted because they think, oh, well, it's just something I do on my own.
Right.
But like, they're
automatic.
We are born breathing correctly. If you look at children and babies and dogs, they breathe into their belly. And when we get to about 5 years old, once we get to school, we sit down and we stop breathing in our belly. Some jerk pokes your belly on the playground and says, you got a tummy. And then you stop breathing in your belly, you hold it in, and you start gut sucking. And then the doctor puts the thing on your chest and says, take a deep breath. And you think that that's where you're supposed to breathe. And you're supposed to breathe down in your belly and your diaphragm, because that's where your lungs are. They're way down in there. And so we're breathing so little. We're taking in so little oxygen. And I always say, if you're not fully breathing, then you're not fully living. You're not fully alive.
Seems like you'd have less energy.
Yeah. There's a million things health-wise that get better just by breathing better.
One of the things I did a number of years ago was rolfing.
Uh-huh.
And for people who don't know what that is, it's kind of like very deep massage along. And
it's like tearing your flesh off, isn't it?
Well, no. Done improperly, yes, it would be that. There are people that are not good at it, I'm sure, that injure people. But the person I went to was fabulous. And one of the things he did was go through between my ribs and stretch out the connecting. I don't know anything about anatomy.
Yeah.
Whatever's connecting between the ribs, those muscles in there.
Intercostal muscles, probably.
And he, used his elbow, and he went along in
painful.
between the ribs. It's sort of pain pleasure combination. And I'm not a sadist or anything like that.
Sure.
Or a masochist. I guess that would be the word. I am a sadist.
Yeah.
And I got up off that table.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, man, I was taking in 80% more breath. I walked down that street and I felt like my chest was enormous.
Yeah.
And the amount of air that was coming in, it was so many years. It was, I was probably 31 or 32 years old at the time. So whatever, age 5 to 32 of holding in and not breathing properly and being tight.
Yeah.
Because it's an emotional holding place, is the chest and the throat, for me anyway.
And this in the belly.
Yeah.
In the tummy, you hold a lot of emotions down there. I had I was an actor 20 years ago, and I had a teacher. I was doing a scene, and she said, take a deep breath in your belly, and I immediately lost it, started to cry. And she said, your emotions are there. That's where it is. And I see people in my class all the time, they don't breathe in their belly. That's why we're breathing in our chest, because we don't want to feel those emotions. We don't want to tap. So I see them just after a couple minutes of breathing in their belly, they start crying. This is what I didn't want to feel.
Yeah.
This is what I didn't want to allow. And so we store a lot of that emotion right there in our tummy, in our belly. And so immediately when you start breathing down, they start to cry. But then, you do it a couple times and it clears that stuff out. And then you just feel good. It's powerful.
It's amazing how, powerful and simple at the same time, and how unaware, I feel very unaware of that stuff until you point it out.
Right. Well, most people, if I say take a deep breath, they'll go, and their shoulders will raise up, and they'll go, and they're breathing vertically. And we're supposed to be breathing horizontally. We're supposed to be breathing out. And when you correct that, it can change your life. It can really change your life. And so people are looking for a solution. I believe, when I moved to California 22 years ago, there was only a couple yoga studios in California, and or in LA, I should say. When I was from Boston, and I didn't know anything about yoga. And now yoga studios are on every corner like Starbucks, right? And I believe that that's where meditation is going, because it's easier than yoga, and it makes people feel better, and everybody needs to feel better. So, meditation is the new yoga. And then I believe that breathwork will be the new meditation. So I think that, we're 5 years away from meditation being one of the most massive things on the planet, and then maybe 10 years away from breathwork, sort of breathing taking over. Maybe less. I hope less. But,
well, if it accelerates, who knows? I mean, information gets out there so fast now.
That's true. And my class grows exponentially every week. That class that you went to had 60 people last night, and I started it 6 months ago. I filled up that entire church, and so every week there's 20 new people or so, maybe 25 in that room, and then they bring new people the next week, and then they bring new people, and then people drop off, and then they come back later, and but it keeps exponentially growing. I've never done anything in my life where people are so excited to bring their friends and family and be like, "You got to come try this thing." And it's, people like at first, when they first do it, they're like, this is hard. This is uncomfortable. Why did you bring me to this thing? It's not fun. But then once you push through that, 10, 15 minutes, you break through the other side, just like a workout. The first 10, 15 minutes of a workout
exactly like a workout.
Is horrible.
Yeah, right.
And then you have to push through that. And then you come out on the other side and you're like, that's amazing. People come up to me like, this is the most profound thing I've ever done. I've never felt this good in my life. I've never felt anything like this. And then, sometimes I see them again. Sometimes I don't see them again. Why? I don't know. They don't want to come back and do the work.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe it's just, old habits.
Yeah.
Just, when you're, out of sight and you just keep going back to your, I can't go right now.
People are comfortable in their discomfort. People are comfortable being unhappy. A lot of them. They want to be, it's safer to be unhappy with the known than to step into the unknown. I don't know who I am as a happy person. I don't know what it would be like if I didn't have this thing that I bitch about all the time.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's actually painful for me to hear it because I have a lot of that myself.
Right.
I kind of flip-flop from wanting to, grow that way and going backwards to the familiar.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you made a commitment to yourself to do breath work for a year, every day, or even just 5 days a week, get up first thing in the morning and do it. And the way I trick my brain is I go, I'm just going to do 10 minutes. 10 minutes. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to lay down. You're not even sitting up. You're laying down. I'm going to lay down and breathe for 10 minutes, 3 songs. And then I'm going to just enjoy it for a few minutes afterwards. And sometimes I do 10 minutes and sometimes I do 30 minutes. If I feel good, I keep going, If you made that commitment to yourself that in a year from now, this would be a different podcast. You'd be a different human being. Your life would be changed. I guarantee it. And I always tell people, like, don't take my word for that. Do it and find out for yourself. And tell me I'm full of shit. I haven't had it happen yet.
Well, should I make that commitment right now?
Yeah.
So I think next August, what's today? The 25th or something like that?
23rd, I think.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
I don't know
it's
either.
That somewhere between 20 and 25.
Exactly.
I will come back.
Okay. Fantastic.
In 1 year. And unless I have the flu, I will do breath work.
Yeah.
10 minutes. I'm going to have to come back to your virtual class and get a little bit more adept.
Well, I'd love to have you in there. So come to the
great.
virtual.
It was
absolutely great. You can come to the other class too.
I will. I will. I can walk there.
I mean, look, that's how I did it essentially was I would do it on my own. And the days that I felt really motivated and really good, I would listen to like playlists that I created, right? I actually have 2 albums on iTunes too that people can download and listen to.
Okay.
They're guided albums, and they have one has 3 different tracks on it and the other one has 2 different tracks on it, different lengths, and there's music in the background, and it's me guiding you through just like a class.
So I could do that.
Yeah.
I have no excuses.
Yeah, a lot of people do those, and some people will play the album while they're playing music too. So I would do guided tracks. I would do music. I would go to a class. I would go to
Mix it up.
yeah, whatever it takes. I've done this on planes. I've done it on the beach. I mean, I've done it all over the place. I've done it on hotel room floors,
Mm-hmm.
and it works. It works everywhere. It works when I need it. It saved my ass more times than I can
Well,
count.
I mean, you're really a testament to the work because I mean, to hear your past and the kind of person that you are now. I mean, I mean, just sitting with you or seeing you, I know that it's real.
Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, I can see it, and I'm like, geez, that's attractive to want to be something like that, because the elusiveness for me of joy and ongoing happiness is it just seems like sometimes I can grab it and touch it, and then it just sort of flies away, and I don't know what I'm doing or not doing
Right.
sometimes, but it really is a choice in my mind to commit to doing something. So I'm going to make the commitment.
I love it.
Boy, I hope I stick to it.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing I tell people, like, I'm not any different than you. I'm not more
No.
I'm not more educated. I'm not I'm not funnier than you. I'm not wealthier than you. I'm not anything different.
You're taller.
I might be a little taller, but that doesn't affect the breathing. So, I have less hair than you. So, there's no reason. If it works for me, why wouldn't it work for you? I don't have some superpower. I don't have some special superpower. The one thing I do have is the ability to go, all right, I'm going to commit to this for a year. Like I committed to not drinking for a year. They say a day at a time, which is true. But like I go, I feel like anything you really want to do in your life, you should commit to it for a year and see if it's for you.
It isn't even that long.
No, it's not that long.
It sounds long when you say it
Yeah.
at the beginning, but a year later you go, that wasn't that very much.
No,
time.
and you break it down into chunks. 10 minutes in the morning. That's all you're going to do. First thing, before you eat, before you do anything. And so, I just have this ability to go, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go for it and full out and do it. That's probably the only superpower I have is that ability. And it is the superpower. And what's incredible is I was a guy who couldn't commit to anything, who couldn't stay with anything. I was a quitter, and I'm not a quitter anymore. But I've shifted that. I've shifted that pattern inside of me.
Well, this is exactly the type of interview that I love for this podcast. I do a lot of different varieties in the body, mind, spirit thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is very positive, really just great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being on. Let's plug your website one more time before we go.
Great, thank you. It's called breathewithjp.com. And you can just go there and everything's on the site, my events, classes, whatever, live classes, teacher trainings. It's all there on the site. And I'd love it. And you can send me an email if you want to send me an email. You'd love the podcast. If you have a question, give me a little bit to get back to you. But I'd love to hear from people and, see how the breath work is working for them and changing their lives. So, thanks for having me on.
Fantastic. John Paul Crimi. Did I
Bob.
say it right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. That was John Paul Crimi. Really enjoyed talking to him and love this breath work. Been doing it now since I interviewed him a little before and now after, and it's really making me feel great. So I'm going to keep doing it. We'll see how that goes. And please stay tuned to the podcast. I got some pretty cool guests coming up. One of them that's going to be fairly soon, is a gentleman who works in the field of cannabis, CBD, for health reasons. We're going to stay away from the recreational piece of cannabis and move to the health effects and the benefits and how he works and who he talks to around the country about his work. I don't know that much about it, so I'm looking forward to that one. That's going to be coming up real soon. So please come back, check the podcast out. It's really a pleasure to have people listening, and I appreciate it. I really do. So thank you. See you soon.